Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Alex Cohen. I'm one of the principals here at Liberty SBF. I'm joined today by Alex Prombaum, our President and Chief Credit Officer, as well as Warren Rockra, our Director of Business Development. I'll run through the agenda quickly, and then we'll jump right in. I'm going to kick things off with a brief company overview, and then I'm going to jump right into an overview of our bridge product. I'm going to kick things over to Alex P., again, who runs our credit group. He's going to walk you through a couple of deal examples of transactions that we've recently closed, both multifamily bridge deals. And then Warren is going to conclude, talk a little bit about our process in terms of the life cycle of a loan, how to get a quote, how to get a commitment. And then we're going to take some questions from some of our attendees, and definitely feel free to, drill down into any specific areas in terms of details that we didn't touch on in the presentation. So we'll get started now. Lon, if you want to jump to the next slide. Just a brief company overview. We founded the company. I'm one of the principals. Started the company in 2011. Since inception, we've closed over $2 billion in loans in terms of origination volume, average loan size of about $3 million in terms of our core lending platform. In the last 12 months, we've been very active. We've closed just shy of $1 billion in loans just in the trailing 12. So we've really been accelerating into the COVID environment. We were able to pivot and continue to provide liquidity to our borrowers and assist our referral source community. We've been in business as Liberty for just over 10 years. So we've participated in multiple cycles. We have a very experienced team of credit, closing, underwriting, and servicing professionals. While we focus on the small balance space between 1 and 10 million, most of our executive management comes out of the institutional lending, asset management, and securitization world. And collectively, we've been working together for 20 years. So, pretty deep bench. You may get invite phone calls from some junior folks, within our sales organization. But once deals are in the door, and we're working on them and underwriting them and closing them, you're working with a deep bench of professionals who've been working together for a long time with a great pedigree. And we're excited to continue working with all of our referral source community. Liberty SBF, we're not an agency lender. We are focused on providing credit in the small balance space. And we work very closely with the agency lender community, particularly when we're providing loans through our bridge platform. And we have, I'd say overwhelmingly focused on the multifamily asset type for loans that we finance through our bridge program. That being said, we do participate in a number of government sponsored loan programs. And so we're very familiar with the way that those programs are administered, very familiar with working with government agencies, and we very much understand the timelines and potential delays and the processing framework for a lot of the government programs that agency lenders are participating in. And we have a strong capital markets background. We don't securitize our bridge loans, but we do participate in securitization programs for some of our other assets. So we very much understand how the agency lender world functions and can work very, very well with our agency partners. Touching on the fact that we don't securitize our bridge loans, and the topic today really is our bridge program and bridge to agency. The fact that this is a balance sheet program for us provides a lot of flexibility in terms of how we structure our loans, and I think continues to support our value proposition for agency lenders and so a lot of the deal scenarios that are coming in, that are not ready for prime time, not ready for an agency execution on the perm side. Because we're not a securitized lender on the bridge space, it gives us a lot of flexibility in how we structure our loans, and I think can provide a lot more arrows in your quiver as an agency lender or multifamily professional to work with us and to utilize our bridge product and our bridge platform. Lon, if we can jump to the next slide. Keep going. All right, so let's talk about some of the value propositions for our agency lenders. So we'll talk specifically about our bridge loan here in just a moment, but in terms of specifically why our bridge platform, is a good fit for agency lenders. Number one, our bridge loan will go down to 2 million and up to 10 million. So we really occupy a space and focus on a space that's underserved in terms of the institutional community. Most institutional bridge lenders are not interested in going down below 10 million, certainly not below 5 million on bridge loans. We understand that some of the agency platforms that we work with have their own bridge product on balance sheet, but most of the agencies that we talk to who do have that capability are not focusing on loans that are under 10 and certainly not under $5 million. And our sweet spot really is that 1 to 10 million bite size for loans. As I mentioned before, we're not an agency lender, so we're not competing with you on the perm loan execution. If anything, to point number 2 here, we have set up relationships with agency lenders where we're able to offset some of our upfront economics and waive certain fees if the bridge borrower from the referral source goes back to the referral source on the perm loan execution. And that winds up saving the borrower economics, and it makes these deals sticky in terms of referral sources who are sending us business, and then our ability to send that back to the agency lender once the business plan is executed and those borrowers are ready for perm loan execution. As I mentioned before, we're not a securitized lender, so we have a lot of ability to be flexible on our yield maintenance and minimum interest structures. Depending on the term of the loan, a shorter term of a loan with less business plan, we can certainly structure, little or no prepayment penalty or minimum interest structure yield maintenance on those loan, assets. Again, we have that we have that structuring capability. Additionally, we do have an incentive program, a direct incentive program for our referral sources. I would say, and that's really, three ways that we can incentivize our referral sources. Number one, we can incentivize referral sources on individual transactions. Number two, we can incentivize bonus dollars to referral sources who hit certain thresholds, like 10 or $20 million in referred closed business per year. And then third, for super high volume accounts, we can set up volume discounts, all of which we're not going to cover today, but Warren can, talk more about it. And we encourage you to set up some follow-up conversations with us, and we can walk you through how you can become an approved referral source on our platform and how we can set up additional incentive programs for our referral sources. Lon, if you want to jump to the next slide. You can keep going. All right, perfect. So let's jump right into our bridge product. So quick rundown here: 2 to 10 million bite-sized loan. It's hard for us to go down below 2 million just because of the short-term nature of the loans and the upfront costs associated with closing. We can provide a 1-year term. We've provided less term on loans. We'll go up to 2 years. We can add extensions to these loans. So we have a lot of flexibility in terms of the term. We will go up to 75% of total cost. We don't have any restrictions on advance rates for construction uses of our loan. So we've done deals where we finance 60% of purchase price and 100% of construction dollars, all of which was, a 75%, loan to cost financing via a structure. So it's true 75%. We're not restricted based on certain uses or advance rates, based on the sizing of the transaction. We can structure loans where up to 50% of the loan uses are for construction and CapEx. One big point that I want to hit on is that, we are very comfortable structuring loans with heavy CapEx business plans. And I think one of the, hallmarks of our organization and the team and the deep bench that I mentioned before is that we just have a lot of experience and a lot of folks within our organization who are focused on construction draw administration and servicing and managing more business plan intensive loan transactions. Part and parcel with, a more business plan focused loan use, we do not require in-place cash flow for our deals. So we're able to structure interest reserves. We can underwrite business plans where there's a destabilization of the asset happening. Again, one thing to always keep in mind in terms of the business plan aspects of, what we're going to get comfortable with and not get comfortable with, it's very sponsor driven. So we're not interested in financing someone's first deal. We're also not focused on the institutional market. So our sweet spot is really, middle market, smaller partnerships who, are not doing their first transaction, but, are multi-asset owners, but not, yet at that institutional level. You can jump to the next slide. All right, perfect. At this point, I'm going to kick it over to Alex Prombaum, and he's going to walk us through a couple of recently closed deal examples. Alex, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everybody, for coming on and listening. I'm Alex Prombaum, I'm a partner at Liberty SBF, Chief Credit Officer, and would like to tell you about two loans that we recently funded, which I think between the two of them give a good range of the types of transactions that we're funding. On you. So the first loan is a good example of an acquisition loan. This loan was on the smaller side of loans that we do, was right around $2 million. It was 75% loan to value, 75% loan to cost, non-recourse loan for the acquisition of 144 student housing property located at North Carolina A&T University in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's a pretty classic case of an acquisition in a short time window. The buyers felt like they were getting a good price on the asset and only had 60 days to close, which was not enough time to close a Freddie SBL loan. So they needed a quick execution. In addition, they raised their capital from outside investors, so they needed a non-recourse loan. The property it was right around the beginning of the school year, and they had achieved for the new school year, which they were buying it into, occupancy near 100%, but the historical occupancy for the trailing 90 days was more like 80%. So it didn't have enough occupancy seasoning to qualify yet for agency either. So the combination of the short time frame to close as well as the seasoning on occupancy made it that if they ultimately wanted to exit into agency perm financing, they needed a bridge loan to do it. The sponsors were not the most experienced sponsors we had worked with before. They were young guys. This was only their third loan of this type. They'd only formed their company in this form within the last year, but they had shown the ability to do this. So whereas some lenders may have not lent to them because of their experience, net worth, and liquidity, we were able to get comfortable with their track record, given the fact that they had executed very similar business plans and exited with the type of financing that they were proposing to do as the exit for this, which was Freddie SBL. So we were able to get comfortable with them. This was a loan also that was referred by an SBL lender, a large one. And when then they had the comfort with us, they knew that once this loan stabilized, this is a loan that we would give back to them. And this was a loan we gave back to them, and they were able to, execute the perm financing on it. This was a loan we closed in under 40 days, which is, I think, pretty standard for our bridge loans. we've done quicker. We've closed loans in as short as 3 weeks. I think the average time to close is about 45 days. We're often closing loans within 30 days. It took the sponsor about a year to exit. They executed their business plan pretty quickly, but they felt like they could raise rents for the following school year, and so they elected to stay in our loan and ultimately exit into perm financing the following school year. And I think this was about a $2 million loan. So there's very few lenders in the market who would do a non-recourse 75% loan to value acquisition loan on such a small loan, $2 million loan. And we had great execution for our borrower. We met their time frame. We had a successful exit, and I think it's very reflective of some of the lighter lift acquisition loans that we do. Lon, why don't you go to the next loan and give an example of a refinance loan? One last thing I'd say about the previous loan too is about 20% of its capital structure was CapEx to improve the property voluntarily. It wasn't deferred maintenance, but just upgrades that the sponsors wanted to do to improve the property after purchase. We were able to finance that 75% loan to cost as well. The second loan is a bridge loan in West Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where Liberty was based for many years. So we knew the market very well. This is a very different type of transaction. This was a loan to a very experienced sponsor, owns over 30 properties in the Philadelphia area, or $50 million net worth. It was a case where he had owned this property for a number of years. He had very low LTV financing on it, and he needed cash to solve some, I'll say, problems he had other places in his business. He had a lien placed on one of his properties of almost $1 million by the Philadelphia Gas Works. He needed to come up with money very quickly to post the cash for that, and additionally, he wanted additional cash out. So while the initial funding of this loan was pretty low LTV, about 47.5%, it did include $2 million of cash out on an initial funding of $5 million. So we were able to get him cash out on a low LTV loan. This is a loan which we closed in under 30 days, given the time sensitivity of the refinance. And I think one thing that was unique about this loan is because of the low LTV and because of our comfort with the sponsor and ultimately the continued strong performance of the property, about 3 months after close, we provided an upsizing of this loan to 60% loan to value, another $1.3 million, which I think is unique as well, especially for some other securitized lenders. We have the flexibility to do upsizings on our loans if the business plan is being successful, if it's within our loan to value constraints. But I think this was a good example of a loan where we were able to execute in a very short time frame, provide overall about over $3 million of cash out. So over 50% of the capital stack was cash out after the upsizing, and show our flexibility in executing for a sponsor who needed a flexible loan. Again, in this loan size type, not many bridge lenders that would do a loan quite like this. The sponsor was very happy with the execution. He ultimately exited into an agency loan for, I think, like $8 or $9 million on the original $6 million loan that we did. And we've done a number of loans with him since because he was happy with the execution. So I think between these two loans, you get a good example of operating in a short time frame and doing a much kind of vanilla acquisition loan, seasoning for agency, as well as more of a story loan, a refinance loan with significant cash out, also in a tight time frame. And we do lots of different stories, but I chose these two because I thought they were reflective of the range of the types of loans that we do.
Great, thanks, AP. I'm going to kick it over to Warren, who's going to walk you through number one, kind of how to submit a deal with Liberty, how to get sales coverage initiated. And I think he's going to kind of walk through, generally speaking, the type of information that we need to get a quote out to you quickly, and then the more full package that we would need to provide you with one of our conditional commitment letters, and ultimately, what the process looks like from there in terms of getting to close. I just want to mention quickly that we are putting the finishing touches on our Q3 rate sheet for all of our products, across the spectrum of small balance commercial lending. And that is something that will be available for external distribution on Tuesday after the holiday next week. And you can either follow up with us for that updated rate sheet, or we'll be sending those out to folks again after the holiday. So I'm going to kick it over to Warren, to talk more about our process. Thanks, Warren.
Thank you, Alex. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time and attention to this webinar. As we continue to grow our company, it's important for us to showcase what we have cooking here and keep educating you on our products and services. We want to keep building with our broker community, not only to book more business, but also to keep strengthening our relationship as well. For those who don't know me, my name is Warren Rocker. I'm the National Sales Director here with Liberty SBF. I've been with the company for the last 3 or 4 years. And as you can see on the screen ahead of you is I will be going over how you will be submitting deals to us. Lon, can you please go to the next slide? Perfect. Here is a high-level process on deal submission and getting a commitment from us within 4 days. I will be going over each bullet point, very high level here, and then more in depth in the slides to follow. So the very first thing you will do is you will be assigned sales coverage from me. If you don't already have sales coverage with us, you contact me via email. My email is listed right there, brockra@libertysbf.com. I will then assign you a rep to work with you, and he or she will get you signed up as a qualified referrer with Liberty SBF. Once you're signed up, and fully onboarded, you and the rep will work alongside me to get eyes on your deals quickly and efficiently as possible. After you're fully signed up, you will then present your deal to us via phone, email. We prefer the phone, and our rep will be going over a few basic questions we need to understand your bridge request and to fully understand the deal up front. I will go over these questions more in depth in the slides to follow, but this is just going to be the very starting process of you presenting the deal to us. Once you present the deal and we have answers to our initial questions, we will give you an initial quote within 24 hours. Once you receive our initial quote and the quote is accepted, we will then complete our loan application by sending you a due diligence item list to fully underwrite our deal. I will also be going over this list in more detail in the slides to follow, but once we get the full package, we will then take it to our underwriting team where they will do a thorough review. And if there's no other questions and no other back and forth, basically, we will solidify our quote into a commitment letter within 48 hours or so. We will then present you with our commitment letter. You will then present that to your client. Once you get it back, signed and executed, we will then order third parties, finish out our underwriting for our credit memo, start legal and closing, and we will be funding your loan within 30 to 45 days. On a case-by-case scenario, we have closed loans under 30 days. Just really depends on what the scenario is and what the circumstances are at that point.
And I would just mention, Warren, sorry to interrupt, just in terms of a matter of process here to clarify, when we issue our CCLs, it looks very similar to like a non-recourse application that you're very familiar with in the agency world. 3 or 4 pages of terms followed by a credit questionnaire, borrower signs and initials, that document sends in a deposit, and then we'll schedule a kickoff call and start ordering third-party reports, and we're off to the races. And as Warren mentioned, typical close time is 30 to 45 days, but we have closed deals in under 50.
Beautiful, thank you. Can you please move to the next slide, Lon? Perfect. Now I will be going over the deal presentation questionnaire. These are the questionnaires we need answered to provide you an initial quote. Lon, can you move to the next slide? Questions we have. I'll go over it one by one. Once you get our basic request, what the loan, what you're requesting exactly, we're going to ask you this question: what does the borrower need? Why does the borrower need a bridge loan? Why can't the borrower get permanent financing? Very important for us to know. What is the borrower's business plan to get out of the bridge loan? We need an exit strategy. How long will it take to complete the business plan? Timing. What is the borrower's underappreciated basis in the property or purchase price? We need to really understand the price per pound in the property your borrower is, acquiring or refinancing or requesting the request for. Does the borrower have experience completing this type of business plan? And last but not least, how will the borrower get permanent financing to take out the bridge loan? Very basic questions. Once we have an understanding of these questions, we will give you a quote within 24 hours. And
one thing I would mention, just in general, sorry to interrupt again, but one thing I would just mention is obviously, a lot of the requests that are coming in now are business plan intensive. And so, in addition to understanding what the business plan is in terms of timeline and CapEx budget, we're also going to want to know upfront what, who the sponsor group is, who are leading the charge, what their experience is executing these types of business plans in the past, how many times they've done that, and their general net worth and liquidity profile.
Perfect. Can we go to the next slide, please? In this slide, we're going to be talking about the loan application checklist, basically our due diligence item list. Once you accept our initial quote, this is what we will need to fully vet the deal and send it to our underwriting queue to issue out a conditional commitment letter. Lauren, can you please move to the next slide? With these bridge loans, the most important thing for us is really understanding the property. If it's an acquisition, most commonly we need a purchase and sales agreement up front. We need to know how much they're buying it for, who are the buyers, etc. If it's not acquisitions or refinance, we need the promissory note that we're refinancing. We will also need the construction CapEx budget and timing, very important if it's a CapEx deal or a heavy construction deal. We need 3 years of income statements plus interim financials for the property as well, a current rent roll, preferably 30 days, a pro forma on the property, usually a year or so, and last but not least, a property on the business plan. Pretty basic, straightforward. Lon, can you please move to the next slide? On top of that, for the warm body guarantors, we need a very typical 3 years personal tax returns, a personal financial statement on the guarantor, and a resume and a bio of the guarantor's experience and within it. It's pretty basic, self-explanatory here. And that is about it as far as submitting a deal. So, Lon, can you actually go back a couple of slides to the process? Back one more, perfect. So just to recap on our process again, very straightforward. Like I said, we can get out commitments in literally 4 days or less. You get coverage by contacting me. You present your loan request to your assigned rep. You get a quote. If you would like the quote and you accept it, we will then collect a complete package. We will send it to our underwriting team. We will get you a commitment letter out. You get that, you present that to your client, get a deposit in, and we'll be closing your deal in 30, 45 days. And I will kick it back to Alex to end out this webinar and see if there's any questions.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Warren. Yeah, just as a quick, recap, and I think Warren did a great job of kind of walking through the timeline. We are going to be looking very closely at kind of sponsor experience, and then secondarily, obviously, we're going to be looking very closely at, the business plan. The more robust of a pro forma the sponsors have, the more information they have in terms of their costs and their cost and expense for the CapEx plan, the better and the faster we're going to be able to underwrite that transaction and get you feedback in terms of a quote, or if we have a full package, a commitment letter. If there are any questions, we could take some questions now. I personally am not able to see the questions that have come in, but Alex P., if you can see any questions that have come in.
There are no questions so far.
Okay.
I'd be happy to answer.
We must be doing such a great job explaining.
Answer it.
If anyone has any specific questions or wants to drill down in any particular areas, we're happy to do that now. And if not, obviously, we want you to get coverage assigned through Warren, and we're happy to start taking a look at deals. And our philosophy is always the best way to get to know each other is to start working on transactions. So we're happy to start looking at your deals. As a recap, please send transactions to Warren. His email address is listed on the on the presentation, and we'll certainly follow up with more information. As I mentioned earlier, we do have our Q3 rate sheet coming out right after the holiday, and we'll make sure to add everyone to the distribution list for that when it comes out. All right, if there aren't any specific questions, we'll wrap up. Thanks everyone for spending the time with us, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.